Oh, boy. Snowkarl has asked us a question. Snowkarl, with the first tip of the day, $1 tip. I'll summarize what he says. He says, how do I feel about, in the competitive fighting game community, people being able to use different control schemes? Like, for example, someone can use a pad, someone can use a keyboard, someone can use a joystick. Do I think that's fair? Well, here's the thing. There's actually a giant debate in the fighting game community right now about this because of a new joystick type called Hitbox that's not a joystick. So for those who don't know, traditionally, fighting games used to be a joystick and 6 buttons. Then, over time, they changed to be, I can just play it on any pad, so you can play it on a home console. But now there's a new joystick, or it's not even a joystick. It looks like a joystick, but there's no stick at all. It's just buttons. Okay? 4 buttons, or sometimes 5 buttons. And then, on the other side, for your attacks, buttons. So all buttons, no joystick at all. So why is this under fire in the competitive fighting game community? Here's why. In a fighting game, traditionally, if you hold 2 opposite directions, they cancel each other out. But in some fighting games, that's not the case. In some fighting games, let's say you were holding up and down simultaneously at the same time, the game counts both. Alright? Now think about this. Let's say you crouch in a fighting game, so you're holding down, so Guile is crouching. But then you also press up at the same time. You can't do that on a joystick. You can only be holding down or holding up. In one of these hitbox sticks, since every input is a button instead of a joystick, you could hold the down button, and then you can also hold the up button at the same time. Meaning you're counting both inputs. Okay? So now, you could be crouching, but also pressing up. In which case, this creates a unique conundrum. Not really for down and up, but it's actually for things like left and right. If you're simultaneously holding left and right, that means the game is counting charge infinitely. And people found a way to game the system where you could just be holding both and press a punch, and the game says, sonic boom, 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 sonic boom. Because it thinks you're always charging, even though you shouldn't be able to do that in a competitive situation. It was actually Daigo himself, Daigo Umehara, who a few years ago announced he was going to be using these hitbox controllers in competitive fighting games, and then basically what ended up happening was certain tournament circuits banned them, saying that they were completely unfair and unbalanced. So this actually is a method of contention, right? It's a hot topic in the fighting game community right now. What controllers are allowed? What controllers are not allowed? What's fair? What's unfair? Generally, in the modern landscape, most modern fighting games have had controls really dumbed down that you don't really need a joystick and a bunch of buttons anymore, okay? You could easily play competitive fighting games with this gamepad right here. Just this D-pad or thumbstick and these buttons is good enough to play a competitive level in any fighting game. Because there's no more, oh, you need to press forward, down, back, back, up, forward plus punch. No, it's like you have to tap 3 directions, and then press it and you get your move. They've dumbed down the controls so much, it's so easy to do these special moves that basically it's simple, alright? So you could, it doesn't, same thing with a keyboard. It's fine to play on the keyboard. You know, some people, again, they say, oh, similar to Hitbox or whatever, because you're holding keys or, you know, buttons or whatever. But in my opinion, at this point, it's all fair game. It really is. If I choose to play on a joystick and it makes it a little bit slower to react, that's on me, right? For me, I grew up playing on joysticks. Likely most competitive fighters, I'll always play on a joystick. I would say probably the exception is NetherRealm games. I've actually found easier to play on a D-pad because those are tapping rather than rounded motions. So I'm just tapping around. That's probably easier on the D-pad. While rounded motions, I probably wanted to be using a joystick. So that's my personal preference. But personally, is there anything better or worse? Not really at this point. I think it's like anything is acceptable for a fighting game. But you have to be careful. Like, you're using a hitbox, if it's an unfair advantage, someone can hold 2 directions, 3 directions at once, and they're all counting. That's kind of unfair. Okay? Alright, so, let's see here. Fandango